Your eyes do not deceive you. In this picture, 1093 has almost 4,700 active governors. Now, look, I'm no expert on 1093, but I'm pretty sure they only have 3 alliances that are main alliances. So they have 450 main players and almost 4,700 total accounts in the kingdom, which means the farm situation has gone so far out of control, it is insane. You're looking at, on your screen here, almost 40 billion power worth of alt accounts. Am I understanding this correctly? In this video, we're going to break down the farm problem, why it is that farms are so busted for PvP and for KVKs, and I think it needs to be addressed. And I know the domain system's a start. I actually don't think it's enough. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and this is my 73 million power farm, and I have not even trained troops on this thing, not properly, in a very long time because it's getting to be too powerful. And I've got millions of troops on this account that I can throw into flags and forts in KVK, and the goal is to basically try to zero this account every single time I enter into KVK. And this is an alt account, something I can do on the side, and for a long time I've said, you know, if you aren't open field fighting, you're no better than a farm. Because a farm can just mindlessly dump troops into a flag or a fort, and I mean, how is that any different than a main account that doesn't field fight? So it's very, very critical that you actually fight in the open field with your main account, but flipping this thing back around, it's also really insane what you can do with farms, and for a long time, it's been very well known that many kingdoms lean on farm accounts to fill rather than main accounts. And then they get to Kingsland or the sort of biggest fights, and all the main accounts are pretty fresh. They're swarming flags, they're swarming forts like crazy because they were filling with farms all the way up to that big fight. Now, I've known this, players have known this, but I did not understand the scope of this weirdness until the new domain system came out. Remember, the domain system is something that makes it so you can only register between 800 and 900 players, and I honestly couldn't tell you the exact nuance of how that works. I think you register 800, but you could go up to 900, and anyways, it's complicated, but 800 players, 800 accounts is now the limit for a group that queues for KVK called a domain. But the domain system shows how bad the farm problem is. Let me show you what I mean. We're going to be getting a look at 3 kingdoms, and that's the 3 kingdoms that are, I think, the biggest that have queued up for Warriors Unbound together in this cycle. That's 1093, 1960, and my own kingdom. So we're going to look at my own kingdom as well. And my kingdom also has a ton of farms in it. So people are going to think you're a hypocrite. No. I'm saying this of my own kingdom as well, that I think that the farm situation is just not good for the game. And I would like to see it even more aggressively attacked. And here's why. For every single account that is in 1093, and last I checked, again, there are 3 Alliance Kingdom, I think. That's 450 main accounts, maybe a few more. Let's call it 500. But there are 4,700 farms in this kingdom, or I guess total accounts in this kingdom. So like 9 farms for every main account, which is insane. So let's say, just first of all, if what you actually needed was the resources, isn't that a problem? Like, I think that's a problem, that you need 9 times as many farms as you need main accounts. Like, is this why the game is laggy? Because there's 9 times as many farms running around actively trying to do things while main accounts are trying to do things? I don't actually know. But if that's related to game lag and big fights, that's a huge issue. And this starts to attack it, slicing them out into domains. And if you were wondering, well, how, I mean, look, they're farms. How, your farm's 72 million power, Chisgule, but you're a weirdo, and you're not wrong. However, here you can see Domain 2 and Domain 3 for 1093, we're looking at almost 40 billion power worth of farms. That is insane. Their main domain is 66 billion power almost, which is also insane. And none of this is intended as an attack on 1093. Like I said, we're going to look at my own kingdom as well. But this is a lot of power. It's a part of the reason why 1093 is so insane, is they have so many farms to fill with. And hey, if you can lose the power on a farm, which is a relevant power loss, who cares, man? Yeah, do it. You send those troops to die all day. Which brings us to the 1960 screenshot. And this one's a little bit lower quality. I apologize. I'll zoom it out so we can get a look at this. But the active governor number that we can see in the upper right here is 3,387. So almost 3,400 accounts in 1960. Okay. Now that is 49 billion power almost of main accounts. We can see that number over here. This is their main domain that's registered for KVK. Looks like it's 899 slots. So I thought you register like 800 and then they dump extra people in there. Again, I don't understand it at all. It's a little complicated. But they also have almost 40 billion power of alt accounts over here. And they've been put into other domains. So like, thank goodness, like for the first time in the history of Rise of Kingdoms, we actually have a sort of gloves off fight situation going on here where the game is not about how many farms each player has made, perhaps, and is actually about main accounts. Because let me tell you my personal perspective on this one. You can share your thoughts in the comments. But I generally think the game is more fun when you do not need to have infinite alt. What I'm trying to say here is that like up until the addition of domains, you might actually have been better off spending your time making and managing more farm accounts than just playing your main account. And my personal stance on this one is that I think there's two things this points to. One is I think it's more fun if it's just the main accounts that are fighting in KVK and I don't have to like look at 15 devices to manage my 15 farms. Second of all, I also think that if we need this many farms per account, like there's a resource problem here. Like core gameplay requires resources. The core gameplay should not require me to have 9 to 10 extra accounts just to engage in core gameplay, assuming these are all farms contributing to the main. And some number of people will be listening to this and be like, bro, Chisgule, I've been managing many farms for like years. Like Abe has like 20 farms, 30 farms. I don't know what his number is. It's insane. And they'll be like, I could have told you this. But I think the crazy part is looking at it at like a kingdom scale. Like you knew that certain people were just totally nuts going over the top with farms. But at a kingdom scale, 3,387 active governors, aka 3,000 plus farms for 300 players is insane. And we can now take it to, by the way, get a look at my kingdom, which actually has more farms per player, which is crazy to me. So here's my kingdom. We have 1,900 active governors for a total of like 155 actual players. So following that like 10-to-1 ratio of farms per real actual player of the game, which is nuts. We have 20 billion power in farms. So like, strictly speaking, if we were going into KVK before the domain system, we would be at such an astronomical disadvantage. It's insane compared to some of these bigger kingdoms. We're literally half the farm power, which means we're just going to lose because of farms. Like straight up farm loss would be like, we would actually lose because of farms in certain situations, which is crazy to me. Our power here is 33 billion, so a much more humble number when compared to the 60 billion of larger domains. But again, we're a one alliance kingdom, and then the rest of those 811 slots is actually just farms. It's actually farms. So farm filling is still a thing, but with 150 real players, right? You're looking at like a 3 farm to 4 farm per player situation, which it's more reasonable than 10 farms per player, but it's still kind of nuts. So what should the developers do about this? And this is a really weird situation, because the second you talk about the ability to transfer resources, oh man, people are going to get real upset. I actually don't even want to suggest that the developers should potentially address resource transfer. But like, do you think it's healthy for the game that there are this many farms per main account? I mean, I get that these are like Imperium kingdoms and this is endgame stuff that's like people pushing the bounds on what can be done. But there's a couple things I think here. First of all, I would say domain registration should be even smaller. I think that certainly in the next iteration of domains, they almost should just drop it down to 600 governors, quite frankly. Because I don't know a single kingdom in the game that has 800 real players. The only reason I can think they would maintain the 800 is because early kingdoms might actually have 800 players, but I don't think that's true anymore, right? Like the developers recently made it so that the number of starting provinces has gone down. Now there's only 3 starting provinces. So my suspicion is that there are less players starting fresh with the game. And if that's true, and they're trying to put them into more tightly knit communities, could this number go lower? I'm sure there's a lot that goes into this number that we don't even know about. Like I have no clue, right? But the other thing we should be talking about here is resources. And like, is it healthy for the game if in fact these farms are all contributing resources to domains that you need 10 farms to do the gameplay on your main? I feel like that is not a good thing. And I suggested a long time ago that you should get back a percentage of your resources spent at the end of KVK, or the healing cost for troops should be reduced. And I really feel like the resource side of the equation, I'm sure the developers, right, they must be making a lot of money off of people who are purchasing resources. So I would assume that might be a reason why that hasn't changed. I don't have any of the information to know that. Just look in the store and you can buy resources. So like presumably that's a thing people are doing. But I would probably make the game less about do you have the resources and more about do you have the speed ups. And I made that suggestion literally years ago to say, hey, if resources from farm accounts is a problem, then just make it so that it's not about resources anymore. Make it about the speed ups. It's like easy to say, but I don't know what that would actually cost. I'm sure they have run some numbers to figure that out, but I think those are 2 big problems and I don't know how to solve them. I think the number of farms per player is insane. I think it's going to be really interesting to see this new domain system limit the number of farms because like in a world in which we have 20 billion power and, other kingdoms have like 40 billion power, right? Like you're going to get wrecked. You actually just going to, all other things equal, which they aren't, but if all other things were equal, like you're actually just losing because of farms at that point, which is kind of nuts. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I wanted to make a video about this because I talked about it on stream and people did not realize the scale of the farm situation where they didn't believe me. They were like, I said, pick a number. What did I say on stream? I think I said something like, pick a number that's larger than you could have ever imagined for the number of farms that's in these kingdoms. And they were like 5,000. I was like, close, pretty close. So anyways, drop a like on here. Consider subscribing. If you want to see the stream where we were talking about this a little bit, card will be in the end screen. I did some awakening. It's a pretty good time. Not as, I think, entertaining to watch as the Gamba of equipment, but in my opinion, more satisfying to actually do the steady progression of iconic tier upgrades, personally. Yeah, no, I actually, now that I've done a bunch of iconic tier upgrades, they're quite satisfying compared to the full Gamba of crafting. That is an emotional roller coaster that anyways, check out those vids, cards in the end screen.